Whether your budget is $100, $300, or $500, POCO released so many phones this year, it's easy to lose track of what's going on. So if you're looking to try their phones out, watch on as I'll tell you the most important differences so you'll know which one suits you best. Let's get started. Selamat pagi! Good morning everyone, Kenneth here. Today we have so many POCO phones from ultra budget all the way to flagship level. We have the C40, M4, M5, M5S, X4 GT, F4, F4 GT. Which one is the best? Now, before we answer that, I just wanted to say that everything I'm gonna say is my own honest opinion. You can find my full disclosure and chapters down in the description below. Since we are at the end of the year, there's bound to be good discounts everywhere, so you make sure to check those affiliate links out. I'll get a small commission at no extra cost to you. And without further ado, let's get an overview of all these POCO phones. So we have 4 categories available this year: ultra budget, entry level, performance value, and the flagship. And we're gonna tackle one by one, starting from the cheapest one, the ultra budget POCO C40. This phone is just shy of $100 in my country, and pricing may differ from country to country, but it serves as a basic phone for your grandma who needs to order online food, receive WhatsApp calls, and watch YouTube videos. I mean, of course, I'm partly joking about the grandma part, but I know a lot of people need this kind of phone. Cheap as cheap can be, but it still has a big screen and big battery. 6.7-inch screen. 6,000 mAh battery. Looks like it's gonna be one chunky phone, right? Well, in reality, it's not really. The 6.7-inch is actually because the phone is really tall, and all these other phones are like 6.5-inch anyway. So it's still just as wide as any other POCO phones here, and it is just as nice to grab with one hand. Now, set your expectation really low for this thing. I mean, the real basics, like the back camera here, as long as they can take pictures. This is just the main camera, that's another circle. This is the depth camera, that's the flash. And front camera, as long as they can make video calls. 720p screen and speakers, as long as they can play video. But the real Achilles heel is the performance. The JLQ chip here is real basic. Like even scrolling through the app launcher, or if we open up YouTube here and scroll like that, especially when you first open it up like this, take a look at the scrolling. It's nowhere near a 60 FPS smooth experience, and I imagine that this would only get worse over time. Now, the fingerprint sensor here is the only one from POCO that's placed on the back, and in my experience, it's a bit high up to reach easily. You know, naturally my finger rests here. But I know for sure that elderlies will not use the fingerprint sensor. They'll use a 7 pattern instead, right? Tell me if I'm correct. All that said, this serves its purpose, although personally, I would direct you to an older phone like POCO M3, which you can find, I don't know, new or second, at the same price as this, and you'll get a much better experience. Okay, I hope we had fun talking about the elderly phone and stuff. Now let's kick things up to gear and talk about the real entry-level phones, the M series. So this year, we actually got 4 different phones with a confusing naming scheme. The POCO M4, M4 Pro, which I don't have here, M5, and M5S. What's the deal? Why have 2 different generations releasing in the same year? Let's tackle the POCO M4 and M5 first. These are your performance-focused phones. They're pretty much identical in design, so we can see the M5 as, you know, bigger number. So it's better, right? Well, mostly. The M4 has Dimensity 700 from last year, whereas the M5 sports Helio G99, a new chip from this year. Performance-wise, we have the exact same CPU and GPU configuration. Just because the G99 is built on a newer fabrication, we could see it pulling ahead at times due to the more efficient build. In general, expect playing Genshin at 45 FPS lowest or 30 FPS low preset, which is amazing. Remember last year the Snapdragon 662 on POCO M3 or even the more expensive Snapdragon 732G from POCO X3 NFC would struggle to reach even 30 FPS at the lowest preset. And we're talking about sub $150 phone here that can exceed that. Now the main differentiating factor between Dimensity and Helio is supposed to be 5G support. So the newer M5 doesn't have 5G whereas the M4 does have 5G. So it's a downgrade, but I can see why POCO made the choice. The target audience of this phone is not likely living in a 5G covered area. Coverage in Indonesia, where I am right now, is still nowhere to be seen. And you can share how's yours in the comment below, but I can say that nobody really cares as long as we get the performance, right? So yeah, one good thing about this change is the savings from going Helio is used for a better camera setup, which as you can see on the CRT TV shot, the M5 50 megapixel shooter has way less noise than the M4 13 megapixel. Add to that the same 5000 mAh battery, 90 Hz refresh rate, and headphone jack, SD card expansion, the POCO M5 becomes a pretty killer package. With the only limitation now coming from the 4 gigs of RAM on most except for the top config. Now, for the branches of these models, we have the M4 Pro and M5S. I don't have the M4 Pro, so I'll just put a picture right here. And this M5S is its successor, but again, the story is complicated. They both have similar focus, which is a bit downgrade on the chip, but they sport a beautiful OLED screen, better camera with ultra-wide lens, and a faster 33 watts charging. But the problem with M4 Pro was the price. It was too expensive to be called an entry-level phone, and so to reduce the price, now M5S sports an even older Helio G95 and has a standard 60 Hz refresh rate. But despite all that, performance is not night and day compared to the M5. You can still play Genshin at 30 FPS lowest. Just due to the older fabrication, this will be more prone to throttling. And we still have the rather limited 4 gigs of RAM at base here, unless you're getting the top config. So that's going to be a limitation, even though SD card is here to stay. Overall, it's still a good alternative if you want OLED at 150 bucks. It is a beautiful phone, very light, very nice to hold as well. It's just if you want the most performance for the price and also a 90 Hz refresh rate, get the POCO M5 instead. Alright, hit the thumbs up if this video has been useful so far. If you want to see more tech and audio stuff, you are more than welcome to subscribe. And with that said, let's move up to the next category and talk about what I think is the sweet spot, the performance value. Now, I'm not even gonna consider the X4 Pro because what I truly recommend in under $400 price point is the POCO F4 and X4 GT. Let's start with the former one. The POCO F4, a successor to an extremely popular phone, the POCO F3. On hindsight, you might say, this has the exact same chip. Why should I buy it? Well, actually, the years-old Snapdragon 870 is still a legend, even performing better than the F4 GT with 8 Gen 1 on my Genshin benchmark test. Of course, this is not a phone to upgrade if you already have the F3, but for those looking to buy either F3 or F4, I would confidently recommend you the F4 because it has better cooling system that results in better sustained performance. So let's talk more about it. When you're gaming, expect a little over 20% battery usage per hour, but on daily use, it's power efficient. The battery lasts the whole day. It maintains 120 Hz refresh rate at all times, and it's got a nice and bright OLED screen. This has very similar qualities to the POCO F4 GT, just with a smaller camera cutout and Gorilla Glass 5 to protect it. As for charging, the included 67 watt adapter will fully charge in a little over 30 minutes, or you can leave it for 15 minutes and it'll get you to 70%. But why I think this is the sweet spot is because you don't have the super chunky power brick, which makes it very easy to lug around, and it also doubles as your 60-watt laptop charger. So it fast charges everything and it's, the size of the palm of your hand. Other than that, haptic feedback is top notch. It can do precise clicks, although not as strong as the F4 GT, but you can feel when you reach the bottom of a page or every character you typed, even toggling buttons on and off feels nice. Finally, another important addition with the F4 is optical image stabilization, which gives better low light shots and more stable videos. Overall, the 64 megapixel main camera produces nice colors and good lighting, just okay shots in dim lighting, and ultra wide is usable only in bright scenarios. I won't complain at this price, but I guess if I can nitpick, I would love to see the f3 camera setup instead of this camera triangle thingy. Although now I just got used to it, I guess. So all in all, the POCO F4 is an awesome sub $400 phone with not much downsides to talk about. It still keeps the performance first focus, but it also has good build quality, very nice to hold in your hand, and a lot of premium features, which makes it a phone that you can't go wrong with. Now, what if you want to sacrifice everything in the name of performance? Enter the POCO X4 GT. Priced a bit cheaper than the POCO F4, this foregoes the OLED screen, glass back, and optical image stabilization for a flagship killer Dimensity 8100. This, at the moment, is the best phone in my Genshin Impact test for its excellent thermals and performance management. It displays the most stable FPS that blows the competition away, and it doesn't throttle as much. Because when it does, which is around 45 degrees, it still keeps a stable, sustained performance. But now, let's talk about the compromises you need to make. Firstly, an LCD screen is going to be an LCD screen. While the colors are still nice, still the same Gorilla Glass 5 and wide color support, try as it may, but it doesn't have the true blacks of an OLED. And you don't have always on display option too. What I also notice here is the area around the hole punch camera will have a subtle vignetting effect, especially when everything is white like this, which is typical to LCDs. Moreover, the advertised 144Hz refresh rate is actually just numbers on paper, because by default, it's gonna refresh at 120Hz, then goes to 60 when you play games, unless you set it manually. To be honest, I cannot tell the difference between 120 and 144. It's too small of a change, but 90Hz here is actually quite a compelling option, as it provides a good balance between battery life and smoothness. Next, since the camera doesn't have OIS now, this similar 64 megapixel sensor is going to struggle more in dim lighting conditions. On bright daytime though, I don't think there's much difference to the F4. They serve their purpose well, which is good enough. Overall, the X4 GT caters to those who want the absolute greatest performance you can get for the price. Heck, I even dare say it's flagship level, but it's so affordable, which is amazing. There's a lot of compromises to achieve this feat, but I personally don't mind it. I'd buy this in a heartbeat as an upgrade from my previous POCO X3 Pro. But I know most people would be better off with the POCO F4 instead. So pick according to your needs. Finally, let's talk about the best POCO has to offer. But before that, I kindly remind you to use the affiliate links if you want to buy anything. Also, consider giving a super thanks to help me support the channel. And with that aside, let's talk about my personal favorite phone of the year, the POCO F4 GT. I know, this is a very controversial claim, and for very good reasons. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 inside isn't the best release. I've showed you myself that it throttles hard with Genshin maxed out, or it uses a lot of power with a cooler fan. But that's only one side of the story, because using this phone for daily tasks, short bursts of gaming at, reduced settings, it's amazing. Every app loads quickly, animation is smooth and locked at 120Hz, and it has that high frequency dimming thing, so reading articles or scrolling social media, especially at night, is a nice experience. Moreover, 12 gigs of RAM is put into good hands here, as it keeps a lot of apps open. You could game while opening a small browser just to look up for tutorials or voice chat and screen share while gaming on Discord. Just remember, at that point, the phone will get very hot. As for the 256GB of storage, It's quite spacious and fast, but as games get bigger and bigger and we take more and more pictures and videos, the lack of SD card expansion might leave you with no storage warning sooner than expected. Now moving on, the OLED screen has nice colors and brightness, but what I like best here is the same size bezels all around. It's also protected by Gorilla Glass Victus, which is the strongest one yet to endure accidental drops. In fact, I've dropped this with the inbox case quite a lot, and until now, everything is still pristine. Now, camera is surprisingly nice in good lighting. The cutouts in portrait mode is especially impressive, which is also the case with the previous phones we've talked about. And a similar story repeats again. In dim lighting, it's just okay because the colors become somewhat off-looking. Although even without OIS, this manages to perform in the same ballpark as the POCO F4. Now, what is unseen but much appreciated is the haptic engine that's precise and strong. It's the same precise feedback when interacting with many of the phone UIs. You just feel them better here and stronger than any of the POCO phones that come before it. But these are all some of the standard stuff. And if you're interested in the POCO F4 GT, most likely you are into the special stuff, and there are plenty to offer here. First, physical shoulder buttons are almost like a cheat code for shooter games. And when you're not gaming, you can assign them to launch certain apps, although I don't find using them at all because when I'm not gaming, I just keep them tucked in. Which brings us to the many buttons and how they're placed around the phone. This makes the phone a bit hard to handle as there's very little place to grip. And because the volume and power button is directly on top of each other, it's extremely easy to accidentally take a screenshot, which gets annoying really quickly. Having said that, the speakers are placed so you don't block them when gaming in landscape mode, and the sound quality is very good, especially when you turn on Dolby Atmos. Still not the most bass capable out there, but it plays the mids and treble real nice. And because both left and right speaker have the same loudness, have the same capabilities, the sound feels like coming from the center, which is something we don't get on most dual speaker phones. One problem I found is with Dolby Atmos turned on, it will affect Bluetooth and wired headphones as well, which messes their sound quality and totally wrecks my nerve. So I decided to turn it off entirely, and I recommend you to do so until we have the option to set it to only the phone speakers. Anyway, despite the size, 120 watts charging is a game changer. 5 minutes will bring you to 80%, and leave it any longer and you'll be 100%. So far, I've been using the phone daily for more than 6 months, using the boosted charging mode every time, and now my battery health is at 85%. Do keep in mind that when I started though, AccuBattery reports about 95% health, so we're seeing a 5 to 10% decrease here. And while we can conclude that 120 watts does seem to degrade your battery rather quickly, I don't think it's significant enough for me to recommend you to absolutely stay away. Like I said, charging 5 minutes at a time quite literally changed my view of charging. With that said, if you'd like your phone and battery life to last much longer, you can always turn off boosted charging mode, and also watch my battery tips short video, which I'll link down in the description below. Now, in real life usage, up until today, the phone still lasts a whole day of social media and browsing. Even for navigation, it's still very good. Just when you're gaming, you'll see roughly 25% usage per hour, depending on the settings and temperature. Especially if you use a cooler fan and play maxed out Genshin, the 8 Gen 1 will transform into a power-sucking beast and consume 30+% per hour. And don't ever think about plugging in the cooler fan to this phone because it'll eat your battery very quickly. All that said, F4 GT is still a very enjoyable phone to use. When you optimize the settings, it actually can sustain a good 60 FPS gameplay, and just about the experience using the phone itself, the build quality, the screen quality, it's a very nice package to have for only $500. So hopefully this video helped you out. Let me know which one you're buying this holiday season, and I'll link 2 of my Genshin test videos here. One is for the X4 GT and another for comparing the F4 to the F4 GT. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Kenneth, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.